Well, good evening. Hey, Jim, we're on. Uh, I'm unmuting you and I'm unmuting me. Good evening and welcome to Environmental Coffee House. It is Jim Massa tonight from Science Talk and me getting everything ready and putting up the chat to see who's with us. We're going to have a good show tonight. If you remember, the last time we had uh, technical problems and they were really bad. And I'm trying to share out to groups on Facebook. Uh, but they were really bad. And tonight, I am so happy to say that it just looks fantastic. So welcome, Jim. How you doing up there in Alaska?
I'm doing well. Thank you, Sandy, for having me back on. Really happy to be here.
Good, good, good. I mean, people are joining, and I'm trying to share to the groups I think that'll enjoy our show. Tonight, we're going to talk about zombie fires and Arctic fires, and we're going to talk about what's underneath the uh, the zombie fires, and we're going to talk about the Pebble Mines and ANWR. And I'm going to let you take it away. So, good evening, Jim, and welcome.
Welcome to everyone here. I guess we can start with discussing what's going on with the Arctic fires. I just recently posted a video discussing that, and basically, because especially the Eurasian side of the Polar North and
Mm-hmm.
Siberia in particular, it has been extremely warm, very warm to the point of, you know, 8 to 10 degrees C on average warmer, in some places even up to, 15, 18 degrees C warmer.
Mm-hmm.
And this is causing the ground to really dry out because as you increase the temperature of the atmosphere, it can hold more moisture and
Okay.
it's going to suck the moisture out of the ground. And as a result, we're seeing fires. And there's been a lot of significant fires going on in the Arctic. And the issue, not only is having the fires bad, but you're now doing what? You're adding carbon to the atmosphere
Of
because when
course.
you burn the organic material, you're putting CO2,
Mm-hmm.
methane up into the atmosphere, further exacerbating the levels there. So that is in kind of a snapshot
A
of what's happening with the
snapshot.
Arctic.
Mm. It's a snapshot we talk about a lot here, but it's really good to have your point of view as an oceanographer and a person that lives in Alaska. And I can't see anybody on the chat. We've got a whole bunch of people here, but I can see the chat on the computer. Always some technical glitch. So I could say hi to Kim and thank you, Kim and Dee Dee and CB and Rich Diana. So there are, and I need to stay close to my mic. Okay, really, really close to the mic. All right. See, I couldn't see any of that. And of course, as I am just learning all this crap, it's hard. I have a couple of pictures I'm just going to put up really quick to show you that I did put in. I have a screenshot of Jim. You won't see it, but it shows that Alaska is battling or was battling 100 large fires, and the graphic shows all over the red dots all over, and it's disconcerting, especially if you live up there. It's very disconcerting. And uh, why can't I get us back? I want to get rid of the picture. Okay, I got rid of the picture. So it is disconcerting. It is. All right, guys. So everybody's saying sound up. I can't take when this happens. I'm gonna put my sound all the way up and hope that the
It
chat. Oh, the chat's starting to show. Might be just the Facebook chat. I had that problem last time. I gotta write to these people. All right, Jim. I'm shutting up.
it is interesting. I did see the graphic that you put up there,
Oh,
and
cool.
most of the fires were in western Alaska, which western Alaska has lately been the kind of the warmest region of the state, which
Oh
then ties
boy.
back into warmer air, holds more moisture, dry out the ground, leave it
Wow.
more vulnerable to fires. So it's interesting. Luckily, in the Fairbanks area, we have not had issues with fires. One looked like it wanted to start
Yeah,
up
you had said
earlier this
something
year,
like
but we got
20
some
miles.
rains and I'm sorry.
No, you said something like on your video. Was it like one of the fires was about 20 miles from you?
That was
20
last year.
miles?
That was
That was
last year.
last year. Okay, see, I've been watching. I've been binging on videos,
Yeah,
gym videos.
that was yeah, that was last year, and that was a little disconcerting.
Oh, yeah, I
But
can imagine.
and it looked like that fire wanted to flare up again, but then we got a lot of rains, and it quickly put it away. Took
Okay.
care of it, and that's the other issue. In the past, when we've had fires, which is a natural part of what goes on in the Arctic,
Yep.
you usually get very cold temperatures. You get, a lot of precipitation in August, and the joke used to be it will stop raining when it turns to snow. I mean, that was the joke up here. And so then you just have a
Jeez.
lot of moisture in the ground and it really extinguish the fires, especially a lot of underbrush fires.
Mm-hmm.
That's not happening as much. So the fires may get tamped down, but they're not extinguished. And then once they return to dry, warm conditions, they just bang, they just go right back up again. So that's a constant concern these
Okay.
days.
Tell me about what we were what with that the really the zombie, the zombie fires and the picture that we have up. We both put the same graphic up. Um, and it's the smoldering and it's what's underneath. That was interesting to me because your video described something that I wasn't aware of that was happening. So
That's well, it's basically what I just described. This is that you don't have a lot of precipitation. You don't have cold enough conditions to totally extinguish the fires from the summer. So
right,
they smolder under a blanket of a lot of snow.
yeah,
And you would think, even with the snow, with the moisture, you would put it out. But a lot of times the snow that we get up here is so dry that there's not a lot of moisture content to it. It's
okay,
not like a northeast snow where you shove your hand in there and you have instant snowball. I mean, a lot of times you'll see snow 10, 12 inches on top of power lines, and you can just walk up to it and go, just blow on it and it disperses. The snow
oh,
is it tends to be a lot of very dry up here,
that's
and
dry,
so
that's dry.
and so you just have this blanket. You remove the blanket. You have return to dry conditions, warm conditions, and the smoldering then reignites. So that's what's going on in Siberia. That's what's going on basically across the Arctic.
Is there any kind of prevention plan? Is there any kind of facing the climate emergency plan in Alaska for these situations that are happening now?
Well, you have BLM in on things, but really, I mean, the conditions are such that all we can really do is manage and mitigate.
Okay.
Prevention, I think, is kind of gone by the wayside, I hate to say.
Is it because the melting and the warmth and the CO2 is already too far
It,
gone?
it's because the Arctic has changed so drastically in the last 3, 4 decades. It really
Yeah.
has. I've seen the change. You know, it used to be that you would get 3, 4 solid weeks of 50 below or colder, and you'd have to wait for that high pressure system to erode. Now 40, 45 below. Now, even with the Arctic dipole in the negative phase and Alaska being cooler than usual this past winter, we had like 9 straight weeks of 30 below or colder. In the past, that probably would have been 45, 50 below or colder for 9 straight
Wow.
weeks.
Wow. We already got a question from the peanut gallery, and it's a good one, too. Rich Diana, hi. Okay, where's the question now? Oh, Jim, peat fires in Siberia. What's going on?
Well, was that peat fires?
Yeah, because this is
Peat,
tonight. It's kind of like it's the audience's night, even though I can't put them up on the screen.
well, Siberia is a big area, so you're going to have different types of ecosystems. You're going
Hmm.
to have the taiga, which is basically black spruce trees.
Mm-hmm.
Then you're going to have tundra, and some places in between the tundra, you're going to have peat bogs,
Right.
which contain a little more moisture.
Peat
But
bogs.
again, the moisture is being eliminated,
Mm-hmm.
going up into the atmosphere, making the peat bogs more vulnerable uh, to burning. And peat bogs tend to be acidic, and
Mm.
you're going to have a high methane content within that because the microbes are breaking that down. So when you burn the peat bogs, you're going to introduce methane.
Mm.
And methane, of course, we know is not a very good thing to be putting up in the atmosphere.
No. We talked to Peter Wadhams about that. Yes. Yes. Okay. So Pete Bog, and we want to move on. Well, you had some topics tonight. Maybe we'll wait and see what are the chat's growing and let them talk. And we have a couple of articles. I had the article up that was about the rise of zombie fires, which we just covered, and then you and I had discussed the Pebble Mine and the also about the ANWR problem, and that is a problem. So why don't we talk about the Pebble Mine and the salmon and all the things that are going to happen as a result of this, and will you give us some history about it?
Okay, Pebble Mine. Well,
Yeah.
it's located in the headwaters of Bristol Bay. Bristol Bay is a very important fisheries. It has the largest salmon fisheries in the world, especially for sockeyes. It is an extremely important resource for people. Many people depend on the sockeye for food, for sustenance, to survive, to get enough calories for the winter. Very rich fisheries. Unfortunately, also right by you have Pebble Mine that has a uh, lot of heavy metals. You got copper, zinc, nickel. You got a whole bunch of metals there that are considered valuable and used a lot of industrial processes.
Mm-hmm.
So there's been a fight to for folks to go in there and drill and blast and extract that stuff there. But the problem is with all the blasting, and sometimes you have to use cyanide leachate to get some of the metals out because they use cyanide solution to put the metals into solutions, and then you just reprecipitate the metals out later. But now, of course, you're adding all these we'll call tailings, these blastings of rock,
Ugh.
and then you're adding cyanide solution, and some of it leaks into the water. So if you have some of the cyanide leaching into the water, of course, and it tends to be an acidic solution, so now you're messing with the pH of the water, but you're also adding cyanide acid,
Oh.
cyanide ions into the system, which is not good for organisms. And you now have metals that are also in solution. Many, many, many years ago, back in New Hampshire, I was actually doing a chromium study on brook trout fingerlings. And because a lot of the tanneries, leather tannery factories release dichromate salts, part of the effluent.
Yeah.
And basically, chromium is very nasty stuff, and it was killing the fish.
Oh.
And I did histological analyses, and basically, it was messing up the gills. It was totally sloughing off the epithelial covering of the gills, which is where the cells that actually do the gas exchanges are found. So
Yeah.
the fish were suffocating. Not to mention what it was doing to the kidneys and the intestines and the stomach and so forth, and the liver. So you're going to have the same situation. You're going to have all these heavy metals, and the organism is going to be absorbing this. It's going to screw up the gills. It's going to screw up the kidneys, the liver. You're going to have mass mortality. That's the bottom line. That is
Okay.
what's going to happen. And all just for short-term profits, because the companies move in, they're going to extract it out quickly and move on. And they leave an ecosystem devastated.
In this
And not to
article,
mention, you kill
oh,
the
sorry.
animals and the people go hungry.
Yeah, you're right. And there was some allusion to I got an itchy nose tonight. I have to talk into the mic. There was some mention of the salaries of these mine workers So, of course, it's money over environment. And I'm looking for but that was what it was. It was talking about, money, but there was some corruption involved in here somewhere. I thought it was. But interestingly enough, and I don't have the article to pull up, Jim, when I was researching the Pebble Mine, believe it or not, on Fox, there was an article, and what's his name? Sean Hannity. And quite a few Republicans are totally against this because they're anglers. And the angler associations are very upset about this. So perhaps it won't happen. Is there a chance it won't happen?
My understanding is that it seems that there's still legal battles going on in the courts, which have basically put a temporary stay on proceeding.
Mm-hmm.
But my understanding is that the intention is to go forward. But a bunch of lawsuits have been submitted. We'll have to wait and see. But yeah, as you said before, money over profit, over people. It's always been the case. And we'll talk about this in a little bit. The same crap with ANWR is that money over people, and they say, "Oh, it's going to create jobs for Alaskans." Well, what they do is they haul up their cronies from the lower 48, and whatever jobs Alaskans may get are the menial jobs that do not pay well. And so these people, and whether it's Pebble Mine or ANWR, the people come in. They live in the housing units that are built just for that. Yeah. So, these little quick slap together shacks, the food is brought in. So they're not spending any money. They're not infusing money into the local economy. They're just taking the money and they run back home with it. And so it's
really suck ass. Sorry.
It's extremely fucked up.
Yeah, it really is. I mean, I was just on here and I'm looking for an article to pull up. There was one CBS, Trump administration. I want to pull something up for us to look at. Which one would you prefer? Reuters, Live Science, CBS News? There's a bunch of them.
I did read Live Science.
The Life Science one? Okay, let me pull that up.
I did read that one the other day, yeah.
Okay, let's pull that up and take a look.
Well, maybe it's the ANWR one, but yeah, whatever.
Well, it is
I read so many things I forget.
I know. Well, I do too. And me and Jonathan, excuse me, guys, my nose is itching. It must be because I have every window in the house open and everything that's pollinated is flying up my face. This was, you did read this, the Trump administration to approve Arctic wildlife refuge for oil and gas drilling. Now, we have been knowing and hearing and all about that. But, Jim, what I've been reading was that the oil companies themselves and the gas companies themselves have said the return on investment may not be so great because of the terrain and the difficulty to get in there, even though sitting on, what they call a gold mine. I don't know. Maybe the article had some. What do you think?
Well, of course, technology has changed, but there were 2 test drills done in the late 60s, early 70s, mid 70s, something like that. And the results of those 2 test drills were basically like, it tends to be a dry hole, is what they said back then. Fast forward 4+ decades, and now with directional drilling, you can actually start accessing more readily some other pockets. So on that basis, you can probably extract more. However, what you said is true, that the return may not be worth the investment, and that is they're probably their way of saying we're not interested. Now, you have to spend a lot of money on the infrastructure. You have to build roads across the tundra, which of course means you destroy the tundra, and so you have to put in that infrastructure. There's a lot of roads that are going to have to be crisscrossing around the area to get to the basically the 1002 area, the coastal plain. Now, you then have to put buildings, to house the workers, to do the actual extracting the equipment, machinery, etc. So you have to put all that in there. Now, it's really been the politicians that have been pushing for ANWR, and you hear them say, "Well, it's only 1,000 acres that's going to be affected," which is a load of bull. Because the analogy I like to use is, take a table, you have the four legs, you stick the table on the ground, and all the area underneath the table, the vegetation dies. Although the people will argue that, well, it's really the only thing that got damaged was where the legs of the table actually touched the ground, as opposed to the entire surface area of the table affecting the ground. That's the analogy I like to use. Area 1002 is like the most important area for the caribou. Why is that? Well, first of all, that's where they migrate to have their calves. But also, and it's a feeding ground, but when the mosquitoes are very thick in the summertime, which they are, the caribou run into the ocean to get away from the mosquitoes. You put up all this infrastructure, all this industrial infrastructure, and you block the caribou from running into the ocean to get away from the marauding mosquitoes. Because the mosquitoes can, a caribou will lose 1 to 2 pints of blood a day minimum to the mosquitoes. That's how thick the mosquitoes are. And of course, you have the birds that depend on the tundra for nesting and raising their chicks. They're eating down the insects and so on. So the area they want to develop is like the worst area from an ecological point of view to develop. It is, and that's what it will do to the animals. And don't forget, this is where you got polar bears denning up there as well. So that's going to affect the polar bears. So it's just so much things going on in ANWR. But there's going to be a lot of money to just put in the infrastructure. Now, if the government were to subsidize the oil and gas companies, so that the oil and gas companies don't have to pay for the infrastructure, then I could see it going forward. And we all know how much subsidies the oil and gas companies get from us, the taxpayers, every year.
A lot. Yeah.
Yeah, a lot.
Yeah.
I think the term, a nicer term, not nicer, but a better term might be shitload.
Shitload. Yeah.
I mean, it's ridiculous. I mean, they don't need the subsidies from us.
No. No. And what would it be like? I know we're veering off a little bit, but what would it be like if there were no subsidies to these companies? What would happen? Is it American jobs that would be affected, or would the economy, which has to degrow anyway, but would the economy just absorb into new technology and everything changes. It's happened historically, and people are so resistant. It's ridiculous, in my opinion. It's ridiculous. They're going away. These jobs are going away.
I hope so. I
So
really
do
do.
I. So do
And
I.
if you look around the world, the U.S. is not the leader. If you look at Germany, is really leading the charge as far as green technology. Germany has agreed to shutter all nuclear plants. Germany is pushing with solar panels, wind power, and that kind of stuff. They are leading the charge in a lot of ways, and it's starting to spread across Europe from Germany. The UK is they waffle back and forth between building a nuclear plant and going green, what have you. So it's hard to know where they're at. Denmark is trying to use ocean power, tidal
Mm-hmm.
power, to generate electricity, which makes sense. They're right there.
Mm-hmm.
Iceland is using geothermal. You're literally sitting on a hot spot there. So they're using geothermal for heating and cooling. So not the U.S. though.
Geothermal. No, not the U.S. I mean, gosh, we're last at everything now.
Actually, I did see some new research recently saying where the article discusses how those big, huge windmills that we see with the three huge
Oh yeah.
blades.
Oh yeah.
Well, they're actually developing uh, wind turbines that are considerably smaller in size, but can generate more electricity. So that's a, so you won't necessarily have these huge wind turbines, but smaller turbines that can generate more electricity. So that's a promising development.
I wish they would do that here. They just approved after 2 years of fighting to put the biggest windmills, bigger than what building was it? The Empire State Building, maybe? It's the same size. I mean, huge in pastoral, beautiful Western New York land here. And, I wasn't for it. I mean, yes, green energy, blah, blah. I wasn't for this one. I was not for this one. And I thought, you know what? What do they need it for? Right now, they don't need it. And I
I
thought,
was,
go ahead.
no, no, go ahead, finish your thought.
I'm done. I'm whining because we
uh,
lost. And even
I
though
was once
the
in Colorado.
environmentalists wanted this. So I was
Mm,
looked at kind of weird, but it's corporate. I didn't want a corporate wind farm. I didn't want this Invenergy company coming. They're just as bad as all the other ones, and I want it broken up. I don't want these big corporations coming. But that's me.
I was in Colorado once, and
Yeah.
I saw a tractor trailer on a very, very, very long stretch trailer hauling just one of those blades. The
One of
darn
them.
thing was like 100 feet in length.
Yeah. They are.
It's like, it's like, holy crap, how are you going to maneuver this around the roads and stuff? I mean,
Well, they
that they had
do.
to close off the roads and so on, but it looked pretty
They
damn
do.
impressive. But it's
Well,
just
they
so
do.
seeing these new the trend to the smaller turbines, I think is good. But going back to your point about the subsidy, it's because of the subsidies, because of the lobbyists in Congress, is why especially the lobbyists, is why the oil companies keep getting this subsidy, and why
Hmm.
we can't break free of the hold that fossil fuel has over us.
Yeah.
But it
Well,
has
then
to
it's
happen.
it's political
It
will.
has to happen.
It always goes back to political will. Then we got to push
Yeah.
people that have that political will, like an AOC, or for the young people, because we're getting older, Jim. It's their ball game. It's their ball game. Their ball
Yeah,
game.
and kind of left them a shit world, I hate to say.
Hey, I got Osama made a comment, and I can't put anything but Facebook comments up again. I got to find out. The DNC quietly dropped a call to eliminate fossil fuel subsidies from its platform, telling me including the language in the first place was an error. Uh, that's
Yeah,
that's really sad. That's really sad. And it's like, okay, that's what we were talking about before the show, Jim. It
right.
shows you that we will be ripe and ready for a third party, because it seems like the Republicans are going to become the Democrats. The Trump people, that cult, will be the far out party, and a third party with level-headed progressives and come on over Democrats that are disaffected. That's all I can see anyway politically.
Well, in order for third, fourth, fifth parties to become viable, the first step has to be to get rid of the Electoral College.
Yeah, there you
That
go.
has to be the first step.
Well, Greg Palast, he does the political reporting. He talks about that, but he investigates this voter fraud and all. There's a lot of people out there that are doing a lot of things. I know we talked about, yeah, you stick to science, and I said I'm all over the map because I say the environmental umbrella it's a very big umbrella, and basically anything I think up of and want to research, I'll talk about. Something different. But I love having you on because let's see, how long have we been? Only a half an hour. But I love having you on because you bring a different perspective. So, what would you like to talk about tonight? Anything? What's your next thought that's really burning you up and you want to just get out? I mean, even if it's political, I don't care what it is. Talk. We want to get to know you.
Well, before we talk about any more enviro science stuff, there is a way to vote in this presidential election
Okay.
to get around the concerns of the Postal Service and not stand in line where you're increasing your risk of getting COVID. What you do is you can request a mail-in ballot from your state. You can do it online, at least up here in Alaska is what I'm going to be doing, and you can then fill it out, whatever. And what you do is you find out where you can bring your ballot in your area. And a lot of places are putting drop-off boxes. So you don't have to put it in the mail, but it's a drop-off box at the place, at the state building or something. You put it in there and it will be counted. So you don't have to worry about the postal service delivering it. You don't have to stand in line. You can
Okay.
just fill this out. So wherever state you're living in, you need to do a search online
So,
for your state, the particular instruction. But at least in
okay.
Alaska, that's what I'll be able to do. And I can just go to downtown Fairbanks. They're setting up drop-off boxes outside the state building, and there you go.
What about
And
dense
do it early.
communities?
Do it early so
So
it gets counted.
how do we get the dense urban communities to be able to do this? It's going to be a massive education campaign we have to put in what? A couple of months? Let's do it. How do we do that? All the
Might want to.
activists are on it.
I think the time frame is shorter. I think it's a couple of weeks if
Okay,
you really
well,
want to make sure all the votes get counted.
yeah. Do you think that there's people that are being reached, not us, but that are being reached that know that this is terrible and that they are. I'm just afraid that the communication out there's so many different sources. You know what we should do? We should tell all the Republicans to stay home. Since it's all rigged, why bother even going to vote? So they should stay home. Let everybody else vote.
I don't know the answer to that, but it is a
Yeah.
major concern.
Oh, Republicans, stay home. We'll go out and vote, all the rest of us. Maybe we'll even get the Green Party that 5%.
Actually, there's some evidence that Jill Stein reached 7% in 2016.
Yeah, I bet so. I bet so. I could never understand that. I know we didn't want to veer off into politics, but I could never understand how that happened. Hey, John
Well,
Schmidt
you have
said
electronic
the
machines. They just,
John
yeah.
says the Dems are turning more green. I'm in a state central committee. Good, John. Well, you know what? I'm involved because we are one step away from. I mean, we're getting very progressive here. I see it, but I just still think that it may not ever happen if we have the hierarchy the way it's been. Oh well. Here we go. Let's go
The
back
thing
to
is, if they
yeah.
validated, they didn't mess with the tally for the Green Party. They got their 5%. Then they get federal funding
Yeah,
for
I know.
future election,
But
and there's where you start chipping away at the
yeah.
two-party duopoly.
But there's a lot of other
But
things going on out there. There's other parties, and who's to say it's going to be the Green Party? There's the people. There's all kinds of movements that are out there. It's everybody has to unite under one umbrella and not go on a power trip. The Green Party's been there the longest. But people say, well, they're there. Everybody has to come together if this is going to happen. It can't be fragmented. And that's the work that's ahead. Yeah, we know we're effed in climate change. We know but so what? You still want to make it a better place to go off when the Titanic goes down? Wouldn't you feel better if you knew that there was some changes and even made it more palatable and people had Medicare for all and that would be a good way.
yeah, it's amazing how European. 'Cause I have a bunch of friends from Europe and Russia and Japan. Some a lot of people I used to work with Scandinavia, and they just tell me it's like we feel sorry for you Americans. You guys have really
Mm.
got a screwed up system there. I mean, they tell me this.
Well, neoliberalism, it's not just on the USA shores. I mean, neoliberalism is a worldwide scourge. It's a problem, and it's a big one. And so, what do we do? What do we do? Can we ever get out of the clutches of the Milton Friedman school of thought? MMT people
Well, see,
think we can.
Well, the problem is, yes, neoliberalism is worldwide. The UK, I mean, Reagan and Thatcher implemented it. The difference is a lot of these other countries have some form of universal health care for their citizen that is free at the point of service, or it is a very, very nominal fee. Like, for example, Sweden, there's a $300 deductible for the year, and that includes, whether it's dental, vision, medical, whatever, prescription. Once you pay up $300, everything is free from that point on. That is more than reasonable. Other countries like France and it's totally free. UK, it's free. If you need a prescription, no matter what kind of drug it is, you pay $10.
Yeah, boy.
Uh, so the difference is that here in the U.S. with this co-pays and deductibles, and you're not in the preferred network and the prescription price drug. It's complete gouging.
Yeah, well, we could streamline that whole system.
Yeah.
Totally. I remember when I worked in that, being the benefits part of my job, and there was a lot of rules, regulations, laws, all that. It can be streamlined. Medicare is already it has been streamlined, and that was before Trump. But well, John Schmidt says the fastest way is to take over the Democratic Party. Well, that's sort of what we're doing in this local little community. Not taking it over, but changing the flavor. Changing the flavor, and it's a cool thing. It's a cool thing to see. I'm up for any kind of activism when I'm feeling good. That's positive. I wasn't out. I wasn't out marching, but what kind of marches were going on in Alaska for Black Lives Matter?
Really not much, I hate to say.
Yeah. Well, there's
I think
enough
there was a
up.
couple of things in Fairbanks, and that was it. But uh, I didn't go because I'm maintaining social distancing because I don't want to get this virus.
I don't
You
want
know,
you to get
if
this virus. I
if
really
if I
don't
do,
want you to
it
get
will
this
kill me.
virus.
So
Yeah. John says corporate personhood and a lack of regulations are big problems. Sure.
yeah,
Yep, that's
yeah,
where we're at.
yeah.
That's where we're at. Hey,
That's
look,
yeah.
we could be just sitting here and just spinning our thumbs, but whatever. Whatever. Let's go back to something. I want to talk about a little bit more about. Let's segue away from politics and talk about any climate change news that was in your purview today. Anything that
Well,
struck you?
we can talk about sea ice. I'm actually
Okay,
in the
that's something.
process of creating a kind of a presentation about sea ice using a lot of diagrams that Zach Labe has created. Zach Labe is just doing stellar work.
Isn't he?
Uh,
I should pull his Twitter up.
he's fantastic. He's just doing a superb work, and we talk on Twitter, and I basically say, you're doing great work. You kind of picked up from where from the work that I was doing on the sea ice, and I said, so next generation, carry on. But he's been doing a lot of great work, and when you look at what's going on in the Laptev and Kara seas, which is on the Eurasian side, the sea ice is at extremely low levels, probably some of the lowest, if not lowest, levels that we have. Um, Here in Alaska, because it's a little cooler, the sea ice extent was about average in the Beaufort and in the Chukchi seas. Now it's starting to go a little below the 30-year median, but the problem again is when you have open water, you have the water absorbs the sunlight energy and it warms the Arctic Ocean. And and because the specific heat of waters is very high, it takes longer to cool down, which means that will delay when the sea ice forms later in the year. And if it delays that, you then reduce the occurrence of what's called multi-year sea ice, basically sea ice that survives the summer and then refreezes again the next year. So we have that issue, and it's going to also change the productivity. you're going to go from uh, there's a phenomenon called ice edge productivity, and what that means is as the sea ice melts, you have that little lens of fresh water, and it creates a little stratification. And you need two things for productivity. You need mixing and then stratification that locks in the phytoplanktons with the nutrients. They do their thing, the zooplankton do their thing, etc. If you don't have sea ice, you're not going to have ice edge productivity. You will get productivity eventually later in the year when the sun is at a sufficiently high enough angle so that the phytoplanktons can do their thing. The phytoplanktons that create the productivity at the ice edge is different than the phytoplankton from the open ocean. You have different phytoplankton communities. So the overall result is that with less sea ice, it's going to be less productivity. So that impacts the food system, food chain and web.
Wow. Yeah. That's
So,
different,
so
huh?
that's
You
that's
never
why
think
it's a
about that stuff.
significant. So that's why the loss of sea ice is so significant, and because if you have the ice albedo reflects the energy back into
Hmm.
space, cools the planet down. Well, you got the ocean absorbing the heat, and when it does cool off, it gives off what's called latent heat energy, which then keeps the atmosphere warmer. So you have a couple of double, triple-edged swords, if such a thing, but going on here. But this is a contributing factor as to why the Arctic is warming twice as fast. Some scientists now saying 3 times as fast as the rest of the planet.
I've got the Zach Labe Twitter pulled up, and I've been showing all of his recent
Oh yeah, that's a good one.
graphs. Yeah, which well, there's a bunch of them. It's very colorful. He does easy to understand graphs, and we thank him. And I think I'm going to write and say thank you, sir, because you've brought interest and you've brought verifiable graphs, information
Yep.
that goes back to sources, and it's not being changed. He's a magnificent, he's like an artist, and he
No,
shows us these things, and he doesn't, yeah, this is good. Thanks for bringing him up.
he does great work. He's a very good scientist, and as you say, he's presenting the graphics in a way that the non-professional can understand, and it's the data, and so there's
Hmm.
it is what it is,
Yep.
and it does stellar work. And I've actually been saving the graphics in a folder, and I'm going to create like a timeline presentation of it. But he's and of course he's going to get full credit on my
Oh,
on
I'm
my
sure he'll
presentation.
be thrilled because
You
he
know,
doesn't have time to
I'm a
do that.
I'm a scientist. We do proper citations, so I'll basically say all graphics are thanks to Zach Labe.
Good for you.
So,
If you ever
well,
want to
it's the proper
collaborate
thing to
on
do.
a film together, I'd love to do that. It's work, but you know what? It's cool.
Well, he's doing a postdoc right now, and postdocs have no time.
No, you. I mean, you and me. You and me, you and me, you and me. We do it.
Busier than you can shake a stick at.
Okay.
I speak from
All right.
experience.
We're you and me can do that. We can do a
Sure,
video together.
we can
Uh,
definitely do that. So,
I'm
so
on
that's
the
a video I'm going to be
yeah.
putting together in the
That's great.
coming weeks, whatever.
Good
I've
for
still got a
you.
bunch queued up.
Yeah, well, you know what? There's never a dearth of things to teach. And you're a teacher. You're an educator. So, we've been 45 minutes, guys. I really wish that I could show the YouTube chat, but how about I've got a question. You know who Patrick McNulty is, right? An Ohm Tech. His
Yeah.
Ohm Tech. Okay, well, he's asking you, what do you think of Ohm Tech restoring the Arctic sea ice extent, thickness, and mass? Have you watched the videos and the different presentations? He says it's the solution, and he has been on my channel, and he had an episode in Just Have a Think, and making some inroads. What do you think?
I I haven't formulated an opinion yet, so I still
Okay.
need to, I still need to really analyze it, really kind of research it,
Yeah, it's a
if you
lot of
will.
it's using the Gulf Stream, and it's quite an overwhelming process, and I can't explain it. I understand it from when he was on my show, but it is overwhelming. But I guess anybody that has a solution, if to certain issues, why not? We want to clean up pollution all the time. We want to try to do all kinds of different projects in 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 G, we had a professor. I'll just give this example. This professor at the school, our school, he went to Vietnam, and his whole project was how to make sure that their sewage and leach fields did not damage their delicate ecosystem in the waterways there. And that's a project that's worthy of funding. These are environmental projects, but who's to say that Peter Wadhams and his carbon capture is wrong, although it's expensive. On our video, we got a lot of conflicting, comments about what he said, but he's a scientist, and scientists are always going to try to find solutions because that's the name of the game. It's to continue the quest. Would you say that that's accurate, Jim?
Well, there's several things that scientists do. You take someone like myself, where we studied what was happening, we present our findings, and we say this is what the trends are going to be. There are others who look for solutions. Now, I'm in favor of finding a solution. My concern has always been, especially when you get on the grand scale of things, is that the unintended consequences. For example,
Okay.
let's throw iron solution into the ocean to seed the phytoplankton. If you increase the phytoplankton biomass, you increase the productivity, you're going to help draw down CO2. Well, there's always interactions you never can think about that are going to happen, unintended consequences, and then usually a lot of these things go belly up. And in the case, and they tried it a couple of times with this iron seeding project, and both times it was an absolute dismal failure. So you have, I'm not saying don't do the research, but we need to be very, very careful about unintended consequences that could actually unintentionally exacerbate matters. So,
And
so,
I
and
say
as
you were
scientists,
talking
we
about
always are
certain
putting a
geoengineering
cautionary
projects.
note.
Yeah, certain
Yeah.
geoengineering projects I wouldn't want to see done. I don't like a
Yep.
lot,
Exactly.
and then there's the nuclear argument. There's the is nuclear energy clean energy, and um, there's the Michael Schellenberger argument that it's carbon and free, and we should be putting them all over. And what do you think about that one?
Well, let's see. To build nuclear plants, you need a lot of concrete. Making cement is one of the biggest emitters of CO2.
Yeah, that was just the yep, it is. That was one of
Nuclear
the
is not a
conversations.
solution. I do not consider it to be a viable solution.
No. Okay.
So that's all I'm saying. So it's just that you just need, be caution. And even though I consider myself progressive, when it comes to the scientific end of things, I always tend to be. We need to be caution, exercise caution about whatever. So
I agree with
that's
you.
all. So that would be my, I wouldn't say advice, but my recommendation.
I agree with you on unintended consequences, and that's a very important part of making sure before you do anything full scale that it works,
It
including
works.
vaccines, including anything that is a scientific endeavor. And so yes,
Absolutely.
I agree.
Absolutely.
Do you
It's
think though there's other people that say we're in such dire straits we're going to do this anyway, irregardless of unintended consequences? That worries me.
If you get uninformed, uneducated politicians, yes, I see that happening. And most politicians are uninformed, uneducated, especially on scientific matters. They are scientifically illiterate. I'll be blunt about it. Most politicians are. And what a lot of I stress this in my videos, but it's just that as scientists, we collect the data, we present our findings, we make recommendation, but we do not get to implement policies that can address whatever the issue may be. That's up to the politician. And quite frankly, if they are bought out by corporations, good luck. You
Yeah.
know, it's,
Good luck.
so it's up to the politicians to actually implement, the policies that we think will help, fill in the blank, whatever issue it is.
We should elect scientists. I always say that. I'll tell you what. A, a lot a lot of the scientists and the principal investigators I worked with in my career were damn good businessmen. And
Mm,
they knew their way around budgets. A scientist could walk in. It's not always just the actual microbiology. It's not always the wildlife exploration. It's also the exploration for dollars. And so the principal investigators learn a lot. You can walk into Congress and know and understand already the budget.
well, that's just, and that's why science in a lot of ways became no longer fun for me, at least, because of constantly dealing with budgets and grants. You end up spending more time writing budgets and grants than you do
Yeah.
actually doing science,
Well, that's
and
why
it's
you
extreme.
hire your scientists from all over the world. It used to be
But
anyway.
the thing is, if you're a scientist and you want to do a study, you're the PI, you have to write the damn budget. You have to write the damn proposal.
Oh, I
And then you
worked
got
for PIs and I wrote the budget and I edited the proposal and I did all that work before I was the HR person. There's always eager,
yeah,
talented people to help.
yes, I understand that. I was in the middle of it. Yes, we have the admin folks and stuff like that. When you come right down to it, we're still writing the damn thing. We still have to come
Oh,
up with the budget and so on.
absolutely.
And then you have to submit it to those idiots in Congress, and they get to decide what research is worthwhile
Yeah,
funding. Give me a
that's a
break.
hard. Yeah, that's a hard one. Yeah, I agree with you. That's why we should elect scientists. I'm having a good
Yeah.
time. We
It,
always have such heavy subjects, but I have to find the humor in all this because it's so overwhelming. It is like Rod Serling time. I wish I had the Twilight Zone to play in the background because I think that would be appropriate. I'm gonna have to find that wave file and be able to play the Twilight Zone.
but yeah, that was the thing. It's just like you got the budget deadlines and the proposal deadlines and stuff like that. Yeah, I mean, in a lot of ways, submitting a paper for publication was easier because okay, you get the referees, they send it back to you. Okay, it's a good paper. We suggest you do these adjustments and edits and rewrites, whatever. Okay, fine, you just go and do it. Boom. Then it's published. Yeehaw. Yeah.
There you
It's a lot
go.
easier, I think.
There you go.
And at least at that point, you're sharing knowledge.
Yeah.
Hey, this is what we did. This is what we found. Cool.
And I know that's definitely your big thing is sharing knowledge, and that's why I liked it when I first found your videos because again I'll say this I said it last time, it was like going to school and it felt good because I liked going to school. I did. You got to learn from everywhere, but so guys, we have been 55 minutes and it's been a really nice conversation, Jim, tonight. It really
Time
has.
flies. Yeah,
Yeah,
time
we've
flies. Look at
covered a
that.
lot. We went through a lot. We talked about what we wanted to. We talked about the fires, the peat. From a question. Thank you everybody for coming. I have to figure out again. I'll say it again and belabor the point. More technical issues. Why the chat doesn't come up in my software anymore, and I
At least
really
we're
appreciate.
able to better communicate this time.
Oh my God, this is heads, and it's great. Well, I will have a future guest, guys. It's going to be a surprise. His name is David. He's a PhD. We'll talk about that. He is an amazing person. That's going to be a guest we're going to have. And Jennifer and I are going to have Deb Ozarko. I'm pretty sure we're hoping for this Sunday night. So we have some stuff to look forward to on Environmental Coffee House. And Jim,
Cool.
you're going to definitely come back because I like this conversation. I like the banter and I like what we talk about. I think we mesh well. I got to bring you on with the rest. If I can handle the bandwidth, yeah, you got to come on State of the Planet with us.
Well, definitely would like to come on, and I agree. Yeah, I think we do mesh well, and it's always interesting to get your perspective.
Yeah.
'Cause sometimes, little being up here in Alaska, it's like, especially now that Alaska literally is isolated from the world.
Boy, yeah, that you're on our New York's banned travel list. Yeah.
I mean, what borders Alaska land-wise is Canada, and Canada's basically saying you ain't coming in.
No. Nope. You guys might as well have a wall around you, right? Oh,
Right? I mean,
Jim.
it's like, even if I wanted to pop down the Kluane Lake, which is a gorgeous area in the Yukon, nope,
Yeah.
can't get past that border. They'll make you
Oh,
turn around.
wow.
Seriously, they're making people turn around. Even people who are moving to the lower 48 and they want to drive down with a trail hauling their crap,
Yeah.
the Canadian official basically saying, go back.
Well, why does
They're not
anybody
letting
want
them
to
in.
move down to the lower 48 is my question.
Military. If military's
Oh,
reassigned.
well then military, who's hassling a military person? That's crazy, right? Huh. Oh boy, here we go. We can go off into a whole other tangent. Let's save it.
Right?
Maybe we'll do this again next week. Twice a month. This is good. I like it. I like it. All right, guys. Thank you for coming. This is definitely a good mix. Jim, you keep
It was
making
fun.
your educational videos, and you come on with me, and we'll have a good show every couple of weeks. How's that?
That sounds great. Sounds fun.
All right. Well, peace out, everybody. Good night. Thank you for coming, and share if you dare. It was
Thanks,
better
everyone.
watching
Thank you,
this.
Sandy.
Yeah, wasn't it better than watching the Democratic convention? I think so. Good night.